Welcome to Conversations on the Coast, the Bay Area's premier author interview program. The title of our book today is, a strange title in a way, The Thing Around Your Neck. It's a collection of 12 short stories. The author is Chimamanda Adichie, and the book is published by Alfred A. Knopf. Pardon my stumbling, but I did the best I could. I'm sorry. You are the author of some acclaimed novels, Purple Hibiscus and Half of a Yellow Sun, which was a New York Times notable book in 2006. And you have also been called the 21st century daughter of Chinua Achebe. Who is that?
Chinua Achebe is considered the father of modern African literature in English. He is a Nigerian writer whose novel Things Fall Apart, in many ways, I think, became this the symbol of a new African writing in English.
I see. He went on in another place to say of you that you are a writer endowed with the gift of ancient storytellers. She is fearless. You seem to me to go immediately, in almost all cases, right to the heart of the matter. And you don't hesitate. You let, as we say, chips fall where they may. And a result is a wonderful collection.
Thank you.
The stories, I think, are breathtaking. They take place, some in Nigeria, some in the U.S., and you continue to focus what your publisher calls an unflinching eye on Americans and Africans' ideas of each other, of each other's way of life. Misconception, condescension, and woeful ignorance included. Mm. See, that's what I mean by going to the heart of the matter. And this grows out of your own personal experience in this country?
I mean, I don't necessarily write about things that I've personally experienced, but I do write about things that people I know have experienced. And I'm a very keen observer. I love to watch, and I love to eavesdrop, and I love to get into other people's business. So,
and you recently told the UK Guardian, "I absolutely like America, but it's a complicated affection, an affection that is very willing to criticize, and there's a sense sometimes that because you're an immigrant, you should shut up and be grateful that we let you in. But I think that's rubbish."
I do think it's rubbish, and I think it's a kind of it's often something that's used to shut people up and to close off debates. That you say something you think, and somebody says to you, "Oh, you've benefited from America. Why don't you shut up?" And I think I have benefited from the US, and it's a country I like very much. But at the same time, I find myself not terribly pleased with certain things, and I think that that one should be allowed to talk about those things.
It's like they're constantly forcing the sense of being grateful on you, and which is stupid.
I think, and it's also the idea that somehow gratitude can't coexist with other things, right? And so for me, that just doesn't make sense.
I see what you're saying. One of the stories, it kind of brings that to mind, the one called Imitation. And Kim is a wife. She's been brought to the U.S. by her husband, Obiora, and excuse my pronunciation.
I'm very impressed with them, Kim.
I am
terribly impressed. You're humming the ends. Well done.
Well, you told me to. Now, she lives in a very nice, I would say, the way I get your description, suburb of Philadelphia. And they also live in Lagos, Nigeria. And they have 2 children. And Obiora actually spends most of his time in Nigeria. And that becomes a bit of a problem because
she has been told by a friend that he, her husband, had just moved his mistress into their home in Lagos. And she obviously isn't very pleased with this. But and this story really came from a friend of my sister's whose experience was similar. She had married a wealthy man. He had set her up in the U.S. in a big house and for me, what was interesting though was how that sort of thing can become for a woman like her, who was so grateful to have been married by this wealthy man. I mean, we're back on the subject of gratitude. That she hadn't spoken out. She just hadn't realized that she had a voice she could use. And so that what happens, learning about this, what it means is that it gave her an opportunity to talk.
Yeah. And she responds beautifully at the end. Now, when you at home get your copy of The Thing Around Your Neck, you'll have favorites. Mine, we're going to talk about next. The Thing Around Your Neck, that's the title of the book. It's a collection of 12 short stories by Chimamanda Adichie. It's published by Alfred A. Knopf. And somebody on the other side of the pond in the Telegraph says, Adichie is a stylist of deceptively effortless grace who seems to manipulate language almost invisibly. Her particular gift is the seductive ability to tell a story. Now, the story that I like the best, I didn't see mentioned in any of the materials that I got from the publisher. It is called Tomorrow is Too Far, which is a transliteration of a Nigerian word, which is the name of a snake, one bite from whom could kill you. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. Here's the way it starts. It was the last summer you spent in Nigeria, the summer before your parents' divorce, before your mother swore you would never again set foot in Nigeria to see your father's family, especially grandmama. You remember the heat of the summer clearly, even now, 18 years later. And that got me right away. What's going on? We're going to cover 18 years in a short story. Well, one of the main parts of this story concerns the death of the brother of the narrator. And when we get to that, the economy comes in, the economy of writing. The day Nonso, that's the brother's name, died was mild. There was drizzle in the morning, lukewarm sun in the afternoon, and in the evening, Nonso's death. Grandmama screamed at him, at his limp body, saying, "I laptago."
Yeah, that's close.
Is
that's
that close?
possible.
Thank you very much. That he has saying that he had betrayed her, asking him who would carry on the Nwisi name now, who would protect the family lineage. That's death. And it just comes so casually into the conversation, if you will. And I have to read just a little bit more. Is that okay?
Yes, absolutely.
You knew Grandmama had never liked your mother. You had heard Grandmama say this some summers before to her friend, that black American woman has tied up my son and put him in her pocket. But watching Grandmama on the phone, you understood that she and your mother were united. You were sure your mother had the same red madness in her eye. What are you talking about? Red madness.
I mean, I think that story in many ways is about childhood and how we often romanticize childhood, but we don't realize what children are capable of. That kids are not as lacking in dark thoughts as we like to think that they are. So it's really about this child's deep resentment of her preferred brother.
All right. After the phone call, Grandmama lay stretched out with her back on the floor, eyes unblinking, rolling from side to side as though she were playing some sort of silly game. She said it was wrong to fly Nonso's body back to America, that his spirit would always hover here. He belonged to this hard earth that had failed to absorb the shock of his fall. He fell from a tree. He belonged to the trees here, one of which had let go of him you sat and watched her, and at first you wished she would get up and take you in her arms, and then you wished she wouldn't. That's that young child that being so much more there than we usually give credit for.
Yes. And the ambivalence of loving a family member. But also, I mean, I think that a lot of my work is about gender. I'm very interested. I like to define myself as a happy feminist, and I like to write about gender. And I'm interested in the complications of gender, that it's not as simple as, in that it's really the female members of the family who prefer the male child. And that I find interesting, who prefer, who have a preference for them. So the son, so the grandmother and the mother obviously prefer the son, and sort of it leaves the daughter less than happy.
The narrator here is female.
Yes.
Yeah. And I don't want to give away the ending of this, but she has a major role here.
She does.
And an incredible, shocking end to this story. Absolutely amazing. I couldn't stop reading it. I found it powerful. I found it very, very disturbing. I postponed my breakfast this morning. I was upset, particularly by the ending. And if you guys out there want to know what the ending is, you know what to do. Go out and buy a copy of The Thing Around Your Neck. The Thing Around Your Neck is a collection that Vanity Fair calls exquisite. And we'll visit a couple of more stories when we come back. This is Conversations on the Coast. I'm Jim Foster. The title today is The Thing Around Your Neck, a collection of short stories by Chimamanda Adichie, published by Alfred A. Knopf, of which book list says in part, Adichie's graceful and slicing stories. I never heard stories called slicing before, but I'll take it as a compliment. Okay? Graceful and slicing stories of characters struggling with fear, anger, and sorrow beautifully capture the immense resonance of small things as the larger world pitches into incoherence. A lot of this is set during a troubled time in Nigeria. Fear, anger, and sorrow, I think, are very much the centerpiece of the story called The American Embassy. It starts by telling us 2 days ago, a woman in the line outside the embassy buried her 4-year-old son. Tell us more.
She's standing in line at the American Embassy, and she is she's burdened by her sorrow. She's just lost her son. And we find out, I won't give too much away, but it's really, Please. I mean, the story is really, it's set during the military government in Nigeria in the early 1990s. And it's about a woman whose husband was considered a hero because he was a journalist who would, speak out and tell the truth and challenge the government and all of those things. But it also meant that what he did put his family at risk. And so his wife feels very ambivalent about his being a so-called hero. And
the way you put that in the book is absolutely marvelous. Rather than courage, she sees the father as having an exaggerated selfishness. And this is true in a lot of cases, I think.
I mean, you can see how somebody somebody who is considered publicly as this hero, this crusading kind of, hero.
Fighting oppression
right.
with a pen.
Right. Can, in his family, be seen as something entirely different.
And in order to make things somewhat right, she has to go to over to the American Embassy and I would say beg her way, for a visa. She realized that she would die gladly at the hands of the man in the black hooded shirt or the one with the shiny bald head before she said a word about Uganda to this interviewer or to anybody at the American Embassy before she hawked, what a lovely phrase, Uganda for a visa to safety. She wants to hold on to...
She does. It's about grief. It's about the kind of terrible, incredible grief that just refuses to be practical. Right? So the practical thing to do would be to grovel and beg and be giving the visa. But she decides that that somehow it would not be good for the dignity of her son's memory. So she
Yeah.
won't do it.
She won't do it.
Mm-mm.
And so she walks out of there, out of the American embassy, past the beggars who still made their rounds with enamel bowls held outstretched, and she got into her car. She's herself.
Mm.
She's free in the very deepest sense.
Mm.
Very, very moving. Very, very moving. And the last one in the book, which is, I think, perhaps the longest, called The Headstrong Historian.
Mm.
I had a hard time with that because it seemed to me to amble and amble and amble on.
Mm.
But as I thought about it afterwards, I think I got the point. I think I got the point. And the point is that it captures much of the mindlessness of what we can still perhaps call a colonial attitude.
Mm. Well, I think a lot of it was mindless, yes.
Yeah.
But also it was it's a story that I think very easily draws mixed reactions. It's a story that I loved. It was very close to my heart because it's based on my great-grandmother. And also based in a lot of research I was doing into pre-colonial West Africa. But it in some ways it's also there's a lot of anger in that story. There's a sort of a lot of anti-colonial rage, if you like.
Yes.
And right, so you know.
Well, think of the title of Grace's book. I mean, come on. Where is it? I can't find the title of it. Oh dear. Something about the
I have no idea what you mean.
Now, part of the story is that Grace writes a history of colonialism, and it's a very nasty title. Very, very nasty title.
I suppose it depends on why we would consider it nasty. I think it's there's something extreme about it, but it's very much the kind of, and this is happening more and more. I mean, I think there's a lot in that story that is about the reality of many societies that were previously colonized, that people are rewriting their histories. They're reclaiming their histories.
Right. That's what Grace is doing, reclaiming the history, setting the record straight. This is a great collection. It's called Something Around Your Neck, 12 stories by Chimamanda Adichie. This has been Conversations on the Coast, and I'm Jim Foster.